Welcome to another episode of Dil Se Motown, a podcast series by the Radio Club Mohali. Today we have Professor Nandu Nandkishore joining us. Professor Nandkishore, a distinguished business executive, venture capitalist, and an esteemed professor of marketing strategy at ISB. With over 34 years of global experience in leadership roles across both emerging and developed markets, Professor Nandkishore's career is marked by significant achievements. He served as the Executive Vice President and Head of Asia, Oceania, and Africa for Nestlé, and as the Global CEO of Nestlé Nutrition, overseeing markets worldwide, including the US, Europe, and Latin America. In addition to his corporate accomplishments, Professor Nand Kishore is actively involved in academia and venture capital. He serves as an independent director on the boards of several companies and is a guest lecturer at the London Business School. We are honored to have Professor Nand Kishore with us today. Professor, so how does it feel to be back in academia, to be back in campus teaching, and how many years has it been for you?
I came across an article in Harvard Business Review, and you can Google it. Uh, it says the best leaders are great teachers. I have been teaching now after retirement at London Business School and ISB. But before that, in Nestlé, I was teaching already for a long time. It was one of the things we did starting early on in my career. From the first time I went to Indonesia in 1996, we used to do a Friday training for all our marketing staff. I used to do every Friday a 2-hour marketing class. So I've been kind of on this journey. And in Nestle, we have extensive research programs, extensive training programs. So I used to go to these training programs and I used to talk on various topics, marketing, on specific categories, on leadership, and so on, strategy. Once I reached the executive board, I was one of the executive board sponsors for the what we call Leading the Nestlé Way program. Okay. So I've been doing this from before. And when I retired from ISB, the Leading the Nestlé Way program is a program that was run by London Business School. And from London Business School, you had faculty like Madan Pilutla, who is our dean right now at ISB, and Kostas Markides and others. So when I retired, the first thing that Professor Kostas did was he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Nandu, you're coming to London Business School to teach." So I said, "Okay, fine. Now, why not?" So I then joined London Business School as an executive fellow within weeks of my retiring from Nestle. And then once London Business School started and I started to do some teaching over there, then ISB was a logical fit because our India home was in Chandigarh. Oh. So I came across and I met the then Dean Raj, and ISB took 2 years to make up their mind to actually get me in formally. And since then, I've been involved with ISB. Now it's been 6 years and a bit.
6 years.
Yeah.
And you retired in which year exactly?
2015, yeah.
Okay. So, Prof, based on what we know, you're an IIT Delhi alumni, right? So how does an IIT Delhi boy end up in, say, Nestle Indonesia? What was the career trajectory you took just immediately out of campus?
You're right. I'm an IIT Delhi graduate. And when I graduated IIT Delhi with a degree in computer science, electrical engineering, I had a scholarship to go to the US and study computer science, MS, PhD, etc. And if I had taken that career path, I would probably now be a millionaire somewhere in Silicon Valley, because most of my batch went there and followed that career path. I had a job offer in India at the time with Philips in Pune. And I had applied for IIM Ahmedabad, where I got admission. So I had to choose between one of the three. So it was flip a coin, and joined IIM. And in IIM initially, so my time at IIT I graduated with a decent grade point average, 8 on a scale of 10, which is kind of like a solid B. But most of my time after the initial, formative kind of 18 months, 2 years, I spent most of my time on the sports field. I was an athlete, a sportsman. I was doing stuff like that. And I don't think I learned as much engineering as I could have or should have. It's one of my big regrets, in life. So when I went to IIM, I said, that's not going to happen again. This time I'm going to really learn something.
Okay.
So I focused on my studies and I graduated in the top 10 at IIM. But as when I was there, my initial thought, I knew nothing about business. I didn't even know how to spell profit. So it was coming fresh out of IIT without any work ex. It was a 2-year program. It was a huge learning journey. And so, uh, so in those days, in the 2-year program, at the end of the first year, you have a summer internship and from Ahmedabad. So one of the companies that came to campus was Ponds, and Ponds had a head office in Chennai. And my parents were in Chennai. So I said, Chalo, if I go there, I can stay at home. I can, and Ponds was one of the most sought after companies, brands in those days. What I think McKinsey is today, Ponds used to be in those days, right?
Okay.
So I got selected and I went over for the summer internship. And that was a wonderful experience. All of a sudden, until that point of time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I said, maybe systems, marketing, maybe something like Infosys, that kind of thing, or TCS, maybe something like that.
No sales?
No, it wasn't in my mind at all, right? So when I went in this 2 months internship in Ponds, and I said, wow, this is fun. I like this. Yeah. And luckily, at the end of the 2 months, they made me a job offer, which they were not supposed to do, but it was a verbal job offer. So I went back to campus, and the next 1 year I had a ball. I still did reasonably well academically. As I graduated in the top 10. So at the end of this, I went back and joined Ponds. And since then, I've stayed in consumer goods marketing almost all my life with Ponds, with Godrej, with Nestle. It's a field that I found I enjoyed. It was fun. And somewhere about 20 years after I left, graduated from IIM, I graduated from being a marketer and a salesperson to becoming a CEO. And I found I enjoyed that even more. It's the best job, absolutely, to be a CEO. So I just kind of hung on, stayed there.
For those of us viewing this for the first time, Professor Nandkishore here teaches us a course called CEO Perspectives, where he tries to communicate all of his 34 years of learning in some 10, 20 hours of courses. Where he wants
By
to
now,
give-
it's 42.
By now it's 42. 42 years of experience and in 10, 20 hours of courses. I'm sure, Professor, that would be tough, giving us a perspective of how it has been as a CEO. What we want to understand is what goes through your mind when you're teaching. You mentioned that you have been teaching from the very start at Nestlé, in your early Nestlé days only.
Yeah.
How does that come about?
So it starts from, the very, I read a very nice book. Yeah, let me not talk about the title of the book, but there was a phrase in there which says the true teachers are not the ones with the most students, but the ones who create the most teachers. The true leaders are not the ones with the most followers, but the ones who create the most leaders. That influenced me a lot. So almost from the start of my teaching journey in the 90s, I was, or even before that in Godrej, already I was teaching things. So it was a philosophy that guided me. And the reason I was doing all of this was to help the people who I was leading rise to be their highest selves, rise to levels and unlock their capabilities. So that's why I did teaching. And that's why I continue to teach. While I teach, uh, uh, it's a kind of a mix. Yeah. So on the one hand, you have to kind of share and impart knowledge. And then there you have to choose what to talk about, what not to talk about, because you cannot talk about everything. You pick specific learning points and then you focus on those learning points because those are the ones you believe will make the biggest difference to the people who are at the receiving end. But the second important part of that is my job is not to teach. My job is to share my experiences with people who are willing to learn. It's your job to learn. So if you are willing to learn, you will learn. If you're not willing to learn, then whatever I say doesn't really matter. So my job, therefore, is to keep my classes interesting, lively, keep the classroom, try and create a space where learning is fun, it's cooperative, and we are actually not getting very stressed out in the process of learning. And make it really interesting with business insights that are very practical and yet linked to the theory. So try and get the two
Try to bridge that gap.
Bridge that gap. And in the process, if there are young people like yourself who take value, that's great. So that's the first part of the answer. The second part is when I teach, it does two things. One, I interact with a lot of young people and people who are extremely bright and people who are probably smarter than I am. So I learn a lot from you guys by the interactions, by the kind of questions you ask, and by anticipating those questions. What I learn from class A, I take it into class B, and it's always a learning journey. And also, every year that I teach the course, I'm changing some material based on my learning in my boards, in my companies, based on the feedback I've received. I'm tweaking material. I'm taking 5% out here, adding 5% in there. And this year, for example, a couple of my classes I had to take out from CEOP and put them into SUET, sustainability course. So when I took those out, I had space then to add more elements, and therefore this year's course is kind of a little different from what last year's course was. Still hopefully very relevant and still hopefully adding value. So that's the part of keeping relevant. And the last part is that there is a part of me. So one of the kind of features that has stood me, served me throughout life, I'm a constant learner, right? I learn from everything I read. It may be Tom Clancy, I learn from there. There's learning everywhere if you look for it. Everywhere. It doesn't have to be only heavy, meaningful books. Even I learn by every interaction I have. I learn by the questions you ask that force me to think. So I'm a constant learner. And I guess if I dig back and look at the motivation of why that has come about, there is probably some part of me that somehow feels, somehow is in a way paranoid of being insufficient, of not being not good enough, the imposter syndrome. There is a part of me that's there. So I have to constantly work at improving myself all the time. So that's the other reason why actually teaching adds value for me. And the third and most important reason why do I teach is, to me, it's part of building a legacy. It's part of giving back. In 100 years, we're all gone. Yeah, nobody knows who we are, where we exist. So hopefully, in this way, I mean, I've been incredibly blessed, incredibly lucky in my life and my career. Lucky, really, very lucky. And this is part of taking some of that and giving it back to the universe, saying, "Look, thank you."
I think this gives us a lot of insights on why you chose CEO perspectives as the course you want to teach. Like for me, someone who's a global CEO of Nestlé, who has been in the field for almost 40 years, would want to teach something like, how the FMCG market operates, or what are the considers that do, how do you look at supply chain, But the thing is, you chose the CEO perspective because of what you mentioned, that you want to enable people rather
That's
than
right.
teaching them.
That's right.
Yeah, like you want them to come up with the best versions of themselves, which I feel is
I
great.
still have supply chain content, marketing content.
Yeah.
You see, I have all those things.
The nuances of it,
The
basically.
nuances of it.
Yeah, but no, I think that's beautiful that you want to enable the leaders for tomorrow. You mentioned a lot about constantly learning. For some people, like when I say some people, I mean most of our cohort, we're aged all between 25 to 30, right? It's kind of difficult to comprehend that once we reach at your level, we'll still be learning, we'll still be gathering some new feedback and insights. Could you share us one or two incidents over the last 6, 8 years that you have learned from students that, okay, wow, this was a game changer, or this was a turning point?
It's not so much a turning point, game changer, as much as the questions you ask that force me to think. So when I discovered, for example, that my students are using ChatGPT and AI, then I start to ask myself, so why are they using it? Do I fight the trend, or do I actually incorporate the trend and use it? And how do we then actually? So that's why the project for this year is all about AI. Right? So it's based on the inputs, based on the interactions. I'm learning, I'm evolving. So one of my on my to-do list is actually to upgrade my skills in AI, how to use AI, not how to make AI, how to use AI in the business and management kind of space. So I'm trying to figure out how best to do that. For the moment, reading, watching videos, watching podcasts, and maybe eventually also doing a couple of courses to learn more along that. So that's part of my continuous evolution, really. The other part of this, you ask yourself, why does someone like me need to work? And I've told you the real logic and the legacy part of it. But there's another part of it, which is, uh, one of the things we all search for in life is meaning, is purpose.
Okay.
And this makes for a great purpose at my life stage.
All right. I don't want to go to that stage thing, but I think I understand what we are trying to, again, understand this a little deeply. Is, do you have any question in mind that just completely stumbled you, that came out from a student and you were just not able to answer it for a minute or so, that, you had to think long and hard before you answer something that just took you across that, oh, wow, what a question that.
There have been a few, but offhand, I can't, put my finger on it, but there have been a few.
There have been few
Oh, yeah,
incidents.
there have been a few.
And do you like what? So how do you prepare for classes? Like when you are about to, from those of us who don't know, professor teaches about 6 hours continuously, which I feel is very commendable. Like for us, 4 hours is the max limit. After
That's
that,
nothing. When I was working 24/7. So 6 hours is a walk in the park. Nothing.
Yeah, but how do you?
Narayan Murthy talks about 70 hours a week. I was working 100 hours a week.
Like I get scared of that actually. But yeah, how do you prepare yourself mentally that this is so I've seen a lot of professors kind of going through their slides every day before they approach, or coming up with new examples on how to
I
kind of
do
present.
every year.
Okay.
I update my example. Even now, between this course here in Mohali and Hyderabad, when I teach it in next term, I'm going to change a few things and upgrade it and tweak a few things.
For sure. And so, Professor, talk us through a little bit more about your CEO journey. So, when you were a CEO, what was the time where you felt that you were at a complete, crossroads where there was no correct choice? That, every choice that I'm going to take is probably the best out of the worst kind of option.
Yeah. A lot of business, often in business, you have to choose between shades of gray. It's not black and white, right? So, and particularly when you're dealing with crisis, yeah, then how do you do? Because sometimes you're taking calls to write off product that is perfectly good, and thereby there's a huge financial impact, but that may be the right thing to do for brand reputation. So these are the kind of calls where you're choosing between shades of gray. And there are many such calls along the way. Somebody who's done a lot of good work for the company over the years, but now is behaving in a way that's not appropriate. how do you deal with that? Do you let the person go? How publicly do you act against somebody? These are all calls you are making all the time. They are not easy calls. And at the end of the day, the only thing is, having made the call, can you look yourself in the eye in the mirror and say, yes, I made the right call, even if it means that in making that right call, you pissed off somebody and that person is going to stick a knife in your back later. It's happened.
Okay.
It's happened.
Real life business and
It's happened.
politics, all these things.
It's happened.
Okay. And what about, do you believe, like, it's a little bit of a personal question, like, do you believe in any kind of lucky superstitions that, I'm going to wear my lucky tie today, or, kind of prepping yourself mentally for some big meeting? So I have some rituals, like when I have to take a big decision, you mentioned a coin toss. I also do that. No, what I mean by this is I also do a coin toss,
Right.
but my coin toss never determines the result. I think it was shown in one of the web series that most of us has watched, called TVF Pictures. And what they do is, once you flip a coin, for that fraction of millisecond when it's in the air, no, your heart wishes that it's either heads or tails that it lands. Your heart wishes.
And that's your answer.
That's your answer. That's what I do when I have to
Right,
make a
right.
call between two specific things.
I've never tried that, but here's a good tip I should try.
Yeah, but do you have any kind of pre-rituals like that? Anything, maybe a lucky tie?
No, not really. I've been doing a lot of meditation over the years, starting in the early 90s, and on a daily basis. And I guess that kind of helps keep me centered and focused. That's the one thing. The second thing is the realization that oftentimes when things go wrong, or what I perceive as a loss or as a negative, in the long run actually turns out to have been the best thing that could have happened to me at the time. So, for example, in my 30-year journey with Nestlé, I tried to leave Nestlé a couple of times for whatever reason. My boss didn't like me, and I didn't get the job. Yeah, and thank God I didn't get the job. I was unhappy, but something else came that was even better, and it was inside Nestle, right?
No.
So that's the second bit of learning apart from the meditation, which is you need to kind of take life holistically and plan and accept the consequences, accept where it's taking you, accept that there is a greater intelligence than you at work. And your job is to actually be grateful for what you do have and work with what you have to see how you can make it better from there. I'll give you an example. So we had gone to, this was in our second stint in Indonesia. It was 2002. And 2001, this global CEO had just been to the country and he visited, and he liked what he saw. I was a marketing and sales director, and they went back. And January 2002, I got a call from my boss, and my boss was in Indonesia. I was a CEO, but he told me expect a call from his boss. So his boss called me. And Mike said, Nandu, we'd like you to move as country manager in this particular country in Africa. It's a big market. And for me, it was a big break. It was a big market. It was a big break. So I was very excited. But then our eldest son was in high school in the IB, doing the IB curriculum. And he was in grade 10. And he had 2 years of IB, 10, 11, 12, 2.5 years of IB to go. So I Googled at the time, Google was alive, and I checked out the best school, the international school. I called them, and they said, but we don't have high school. We only have up to middle school. After that, students go to wherever. So now I had a dilemma, because if I say no to this, it's a promotion. It's the end of my career, because so what do I do? So that day we went home, we had a family meeting. I sat with the children and we said, listen, our priority is your schooling. We want you to complete IB from this school. It's a good school. You're doing well. You're well adjusted. We're going to be here. I'm going to say no to this move. And if it means that I get sacked, well, so be it. I'll find another job and we'll do this. So we all agreed. I went back and said no. So my boss tried, my boss's boss, Mike, tried to talk me through and said, no, no, why didn't you put him in boarding school and this? We said, no, none of the above. So he said, okay, this one time, I'm allowing you because of this reason. You can never say no again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it went on. And 6 months later, I was made the CEO in Indonesia.
So it worked out.
See how things work out, right?
Yeah.
So, but I could have said yes, and I could have gone to Africa, to this big market, and life would have been different.
Yeah, you mentioned about family, so that brings me to another interesting, very general but interesting topic about work-life balance. It'll be great to hear from someone who had been. You mentioned that you have been working 24/7, 6 hours is like a walk in the
Look,
park.
I always made time for family.
Okay.
Yeah, I never missed any birthdays, never missed any anniversaries, never missed a single parent-teacher meeting.
Oh,
I was
okay.
always there. Um, and that meant during work, I went, but because I was working late and I was working weekends, for me, it was okay to take a couple of hours during the day and go and do what I had to do. Having said that, the children also saw me working hard. And so today they are hard workers themselves. So the role modeling is a very important part. So they worked hard at school, they worked hard now in their respective jobs. So yeah, what you do at home also sets the tone.
Correct.
They knew they were top priority. I was willing to quit Nestle for them. They knew that because we had a frank conversation about it. They knew I was there for all the important events, and they knew we played together. Whenever we had time together, we played together. We told stories. We watched movies. We watched cricket together. So yeah, it was a difficult act to juggle the two, but let me give here credit to my wife. The only reason I was able to do that was because my wife, who's also from IIM Ahmedabad, quit her job and became a trailing spouse the moment we left India. If she hadn't done that, there's no way I could have done this. And if you ask me today, if I had to go back and make a choice all over again, I'm taking it back to 1996 when I was given the option of going to Indonesia the first time, I would not go. I would not ask her to put her career in the back seat so that I could pursue my career. Today, I would make a different choice in hindsight. But at the time, that's the reason why I was able to devote this time.
No, I'm sure, ma'am would have played a very critical role in all of this.
Very. And she often, told me what I needed to hear, but did not want to hear or hated hearing. Yeah.
That's, I think, one of the best things you can have from your partner.
Yeah.
Work-life balance, in my opinion, means much more than time as well. It means about mental things as well.
Yes.
So based on what I have seen from my family, similar to yours, my father's a lawyer. He was involved in a lot of heated negotiations till like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. But he never brought that anger back to home. Um, how do you suggest to our viewers that, how do you mentally turn off when you come back home? You said that you have spent a lot of time with your kids playing cricket, watching cricket, and doing all sorts of things. How do you mentally shut off, remove the tension from Nestle? You were a global CEO. I'm sure the stakes were extremely burning.
Yeah, it was hard, and I do remember a couple of times in my career, I brought them home, and it wasn't nice, and I can't forgive myself till today. But somehow, and that's where I think my wife was very helpful, and she could kind of manage and steer us in the right direction, me and the kids.
Yeah.
Saying, listen, today Dada is not in a good mood, please give him space.
Yeah. Let's not try to piss him off or anything. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, Professor, what has been the most difficult question you have been asked when you were a CEO? Given a situation or given a task or a certain question that popped up within your team.
Well, the hardest thing for me was always letting people go, sacking people. And I did a lot of that. I closed businesses, I sold businesses, I closed factories, I fired people. It's very hard. Some people enjoy doing that. I find it hard. So I forced myself in each one of those cases to be the front man, to be the one that they would like to burn my photo or throw darts at. So I looked them in the eye and tried to separate the individual from the role, saying, you're a great individual, you're a great human being, but your role is not required anymore, or you are not required in this role, and we don't have another place for you. So that's the kind of conversation we tried to have. And tried also, because with the person you're letting somebody go, you try to be as generous as you can. Don't just follow the letter of the law. You need to be a little bit beyond the letter. You need to be more aligned with the spirit of the law. So maybe even more, which sets precedents and so on. But that's the way we did it. And to me, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do.
Okay, as a CEO.
As a CEO, letting people go.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have been extremely difficult. And being very early stars in our starts of our career, I think for us it's very difficult to comprehend that we also might be at a crossroad like this someday. That might have to let go of people. Some kids might have been fresh out of MBA.
There's no might.
There's no might.
You will have to.
You will have to. Okay. I think, yeah, Prof, talking about roles not being required anymore and MBA as general and jobs, how do you think you mentioned that since this our project is also about AI, I don't want you to give me any head starts, but what do you think this AI is going to play a role in terms of education right now? How do you think MBA can be disrupted? Is it possible to disrupt it? Do
Well,
you
it's
see
being disrupted already. And we talked about this in the last class. So education historically, and there was a huge Economist article about this about 4 years ago during COVID. So education traditionally has brought five things under one roof. One is knowledge creation, which is research. Second is knowledge dissemination, which is teaching. Third is certification, degrees. Fourth is job matching, placement. And fifth is alumni network club creation.
Peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer. But no, it's an old boys network. It's a club that you are creating. So today with with technology, with internet, this is getting disrupted big time. So knowledge creation, arguably today, is happening more in the industry than in universities. AI has not been created by university. Universities have worked and created some platforms, but eventually it's industry that is creating AI, or new materials or new energy sources. So it's industry. Knowledge creation is already moving out. Knowledge dissemination. We have a lot of platforms like Coursera, Emeritus, Udemy, Udacity, etc. And that is getting disrupted, or even the master classes that LinkedIn offers. Certification is still in the hands of the traditional universities, but it's not far before that also moves, because for the simple reason that long format courses, 1 year, 2 year courses, are slowly losing their allure. And instead, people are moving to short duration, high intensity courses, 4 weeks, instant gratification, 4 weeks. And there it's a certification. The person conducting the training offers a certification. I did a course on AI. That's all you need, right? And then job matching and network creation has moved to the realm of LinkedIn and ISB. Our students use LinkedIn a lot. So this is getting disrupted. This basically means two things are going to happen. One, that there's going to be massive disruption in the education sector, especially traditional universities that are not able to compete in these five domains will cease to have relevance. So there's going to be a flight to quality. The top universities that are still able to do these five things really well and do them. So job matching, placement, for example. The moment a university stops, an MBA school says, I can't provide placement, suddenly why would anyone go to the MBA school, right? So there's going to be a flight to quality. The top tier will survive, the bottom tier will basically drop out. The nature of employment itself will change, and how is that going to evolve? That's a whole different question. But it's happening not only in education, it's happening in general. What you are seeing globally is you have this kind of schism between haves and have-nots, economic haves and have-nots, digital haves and have-nots, and this is global, with the result that all markets, and education is no exception, is basically splitting into two. One is the low price mass market, and the other is the premium high quality market.
Sure.
And this is happening market across market. The middle and the middle class increasingly across societies is shrinking. This is a societal issue. It's an issue that needs to be addressed at a societal level. And I think in this pendulum that is keeping on shifting between capitalism and socialism, there needs to be some kind of an enlightened capitalism which finds a way to regrow the middle. Otherwise, society is in for some rough times. But for the moment, this split between high quality,
low quality,
and this is happening in every industry.
I mean, it gives a lot to think about, right? I think we had a discussion in class about which jobs, you are likely to get disrupted in if certain things come in, of new technology rules in. And I think, yeah, this gives me actually, I'm at a loss of words right now because it also has my mind running into a lot of places that, what will our future look like? How will our jobs get adapted to this? But yeah, how do you want to integrate all of this in your teaching methodologies? Not just the course content per se, but the point about the second part, which is the dissemination, which how do you distribute using technology? Do you foresee something happening?
I have a lot of online courses through ISB.
Okay.
On Emeritus, on Emarticus, on Coursera. So we have a lot of online work that's available there, which people are accessing. During COVID, I had set up my own YouTube channel, and I have a whole studio that I can do my own recording with a blue screen, etc.
We'll record a podcast next time.
We'll see. And so that it's on YouTube. It's called Insights with Nandu. It's got some couple of thousand subscribers. But after COVID stopped, I just didn't have time for it because it calls for a huge time commitment. So I stopped. But at some time, who knows, I might revive it and go back to it.
I think next time in your introduction, I'll add a YouTuber, part-time YouTuber there as well.
Part-time YouTuber. And what you forgot is also a mountain climber.
Oh, yeah.
Trekker, marathon runner, etc.
Yeah, I was about to come to that only.
A grandparent, a parent.
Yeah, so we all of us are aware who have been learning from you that you have been very active in the physical fitness category as well. Marathon running, mountain climbing, and you mentioned that you try to take off time and travel every year, right?
Yeah. So some of our retired colleagues, so we try and do at least a 2 week to 3 week trek together every year. We walk the Camino Santiago from three different directions. We walk the Camino di Francesco in Italy. Now we are walking the Camino Francigena in France. So this year, hopefully in May, we will walk across most of France into Switzerland and then climb the Grand Saint Bernard Pass into Italy. So this is to me very important, where you are just walking and you walk 25, 30 kilometers a day, you have nice conversations, you meet interesting people, but it's an active way of relaxing. So I still do that. Hopefully we'll keep doing that.
Sounds fascinating. And at this stage as well that you're covering all of this is just like for us, what I can crack joke about is students like me are not able to travel to class also. And you are out there traveling and scaling mountains.
No,
amazing.
You don't want to know me in my IIT days.
Oh, okay.
I had long hair up to here. I had a big mustache like that.
So
different animal.
There's scope for us.
Different animal. Yeah.
Okay, Prof, I think just one last question. And this is a question that I think has been pondering around the industry for a while now. And since you have been very closely affiliated with FMCG, all of the academia and theoretical people tell one thing, and the industry people tell one thing about this particular aspect, which is quick commerce industry. The theory all suggest that it's a cash burning thing. It'll never sustain itself. These models are bound to close down. Yet at the same time, in the industry, in practicality, we see all VCs, investors running towards QCommerce. We see Blinkit opening new dark stores every day. What is your stance about this? You are someone who is exactly at the center of theory and industry, you know.
Well, my first and simple answer is time will tell. We can sit here and strategize and theorize till the cows come home, but listen, we don't know. The second part, which is the more complicated part of the answer, is if there is a real consumer demand here, and there appears to be a real consumer demand, then business models will evolve to find a way to cater to that demand. The solution they have today may well be is cash burning. But if a lot of VCs are putting money, if you have these people creating these models, it's because they have some kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. Amazon made a loss for the first, almost 20 years of its existence, because they were reinvesting in growing the business, and VCs kept investing because it was all about building market share. Similarly here, why are they making a loss? Why are they cash burning? Is it because they're building market share? There's an article in the latest Economist about this, where they're talking about how Amazon is being disrupted by quick commerce in India and Indonesia and the global south. To be fair, there are some quick commerce in the US as well. So DoorDash, for example, or Uber Eats. There are some.
And Grab in Southeast Asia.
Grab is in the global south, in
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia. So if there is a demand, over time, people are going to crack this. They'll find a solution. I think it's very dangerous for us to sit back. If you look at the startups and you go back in time and somebody came to you and said, pitched you, here's Facebook. You think any academic would have said Facebook is a good idea? Anybody? And Facebook there was no way to monetize it for the first 5-6 years it was running. There was no way to monetize it. So the whole question was, will it survive? It survived, it's stronger, it's monetized. They've even when they bought WhatsApp for what, $18 billion?
Somewhere there.
How did they monetize it?
I think that was a perspective that I did not think of, and that's why probably it's very important to take a course like CEO Perspectives that helps us think like you, kind of going back and relating in time. But it's great. I think you've given me also a lot to think about, probably our viewers also a lot to think about. So thank you for giving out this time, Professor.
Sure thing, Raghav. And thank you all. See you in class.
See you, everyone.